We are back. Welcome to Building the Pride. I am your host, Drew, and I'm joined as always by my co host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever, Drew. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
we talked about this. Um, I'm tired. Started a
Yeah,
new job, learning new things. Learning things usually means I get tired. So, you know what's interesting at my new job? The most interesting thing? I have a
what's
20-minute lunch.
20 minutes? That's all.
And I've learned that the cafeteria where we buy the food is a 10-minute walk from where my department is.
Boy, that's a real bummer, man.
So today I went to lunch, and the way that they have their cafeteria, it's not huge, but it's pretty good. It's pretty well stocked. The way they've got their cafeteria set up, you got like a salad bar right as you come in. So I don't feel like I have time to like peruse and make a
Right.
decision.
You're in
So
and
I'm
out,
just like,
right?
yeah, I'm trying to eat better. I'm gonna do the salad thing. It's cheap. They do it by weight. So I grab a bottle of water. I start filling up my little salad plate. Do the lettuce, some spinach, and then I do like cranberries and sesame seeds, croutons. I threw some grilled chicken in there. Had this nice woman help me
Sounds
figure out how
great.
to pay for it. That was nice of her to show me the system. And then I went and sat down with like my team members that are also coming into the facility the same time I am. And I just started to basically be like, "Oh, that's interesting," and just was just gobbling what must look like a frantic cow, just gobbling down the salad. And I got through it, but I had 3 minutes to get back to the other
You had to
side of the
book it
building,
back,
which
huh?
takes 10.
Jeez.
So I'm gonna talk to my boss because I'm like, I don't understand. Like if it takes me 10 minutes to get over there and 10 minutes to get back, there's no time to eat.
Right.
I can't be the only one experiencing this issue. Like is there an unwritten rule that I'm unaware of?
Right. Or
So
is there
that's
someplace closer that you just haven't been told yet?
well, I am not very good at bringing my own lunch. But like the
Same.
choice with a 20-minute lunch is you bring it or you buy it or you don't eat one. So
Right.
I'm going to have to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, the good news is you can get your steps in, you can get a little bit of cardio as you're running back and forth.
So I
While,
also have
while
to wear
also
steel.
having a nice healthy salad.
Yeah,
Win
so
win win.
I have steel-toed shoes on all day. So
Oh,
I am having more steps, and I think they should count like 1.5 because like it's like legit steel. It's not like
yeah.
the composite plastic.
Yeah.
So those boots, by the end of the day, I'm kind of scuffing my boots on the floor. So like yeah, it's more steps. They're heavier steps. Salad's not exactly what I would call um
Uh,
like
Heavy
yeah.
filling.
So like it is what I would call brain food. Did I ever tell you about the first GP I went to?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if it was the first GP, but it was one of them. We went to a
Hmm.
Grand Prix for Magic the Gathering, and I was so tired having played at that level of competition that after my first round, I went and ate like an entire Greek salad. It was massive.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just like chock full of salad.
Yeah.
So you wait a little while, you get paired up, you go and you play your next round. I'm exhausted again. I go back and eat more food. I ate, and so like I went like something like 1 and 3 and dropped, and I
Oh
had
wow.
3 meals inside of 3 hours just to keep my brain going. So I'm
That's
definitely
rough.
on the like let's eat good food, let's keep the brain at
Yeah.
an optimal level kind of a thing. So yeah, but it's going
Yeah.
pretty well. So I'm pretty
Good.
happy with it so far.
Right
I was
on.
very nervous the first day. So,
Now you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
but people are not here to hear about my new job. They're here about my terrible takes in professional football. However, if you'll permit me,
However, yeah, I'll permit you.
I'm going to rant about something not football related for a moment.
Not football. Now I'm intrigued.
But it is, I think, relevant to football. And here's how. I, as everyone knows who watches the show, love the NFL draft. It is my Christmas, birthday all rolled into one. I love it. I think football, the NFL, has that figured out.
I know where you're going.
Let me tell you who doesn't have it figured out. The National
that,
Basketball
Drew?
Association has not got their draft figured out. I am starting to get to the conspiracy level opinion that it's also not random. So a couple of years ago, 5-6 years ago, the NBA went to a lottery system. They always had a lottery system, but it was like ping pong balls, and you take them out of the big ping pong thing, and it was like the lottery on old school news. And like you had odds, and so whoever had what was it, the most amount of ping pong balls,
whoever had the worst record, you got like 12 ping pong balls. The second had 10, that kind of thing. Yeah,
right. So it used to be more so that the bad teams got the higher picks, which is good because then you even out the talent, and that the way that the NBA's collective bargaining agreement works, the team that drafts you that you play for has the ability to pay you more than other teams if you were to go to the open market. So if like Devontae Adams, who now plays for the Rams, was drafted by the Packers, played for the Packers, and then after his contract was up, went on to the free agent market, it would be a super advantage if the Packers could say, we can pay you $20 million a year. And the most that the Rams could offer you was 16. That's a difference. And that's how it works in the NBA. So here's my problem with the National Basketball Association. In the last 5 years, the worst team in the NBA has not gotten the number one pick, including this year. This year, the Dallas Mavericks, who had a 1.8% chance of getting the number one overall pick, got it. They moved up 10 spots in the lottery. There's only 13 picks in the lottery. Yeah. So it is an unprecedented move up. It is like when San Antonio got the number one pick like 30 years ago and got Tim Duncan. Here's the other problem I have with it. The year before that, I believe, another team basically moved up with a 1.8% chance of getting the number one overall pick. The worst team in the NBA has not gotten the number one pick 3 years running. So here are the records of the teams in this year's draft and where they're picking. Let's see. Dallas, who was picking at 1, was 39-43. That's almost a 500 ball club. San Antonio, who got the first round pick last year, was 34-48. Philadelphia, who was projected to be a playoff team but had a terrible season, got the third pick. They were 24-58. Charlotte at 19-63, and Utah at 17-65. They won 1 out of 5 games.
Wow.
Washington was 18-64, and they picked 6th. And then New Orleans is picking 7th and has 21 wins. So here's the number one conspiracy theory in sports right now, is that the NBA awarded the number one overall pick because Dallas's GM was so stupid for trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers that they had to reward Dallas with something to not basically fracture the fan base and have the fans lose all hope and not go to Mavericks games anymore. Now, here's my problem with it. The Pistons, up until this year, have been awful. They have been awful. They got the number one overall pick in like 2020
okay,
or 2021, and then drafted Cade Cunningham, who was played at an all-star level this year. He was great. However, last year, they were the worst team in the NBA. And if we had gotten the number one pick, if the NBA adhered to an NFL-like lottery system, Victor Wembanyama would be on the Pistons right now with Cade Cunningham, and we would be in line to compete for titles in like 2 or 3 seasons.
The Red Wings got equally screwed in their draft when they had the worst.
So
Their lottery is similar, but they do have a maximum that you can only move up 10 spots. So if you're 12th through the 16th, the most you can move up to is like 2 through 6. If you win the lottery, you move up 10 spots. And I think I read the most you could lose is drop 4 spots. So if you have the worst record, the worst you could be drafting was 5, if I recall correctly, or 4, 4 or 5. Anyway, that's what happened to the Red Wings. They had the worst record. They did not win the lotto, and they actually ended up dropping the most possible spots.
So I'm looking at the NHL draft because I know that they just had their lottery not too long ago.
Yeah.
The Islanders, who are a 500 ball club, moved up 9 spots to get the number 1 pick, and the Utah Mammoths, which I think is a sick name, moved up 10 spots to pick number 4, and they had a winning record.
Yeah, because it's every team that did not make the playoffs. So it doesn't matter, if you have a winning record or a losing record. If you didn't make the playoffs, you're in the lotto. They had a 1.5% chance of winning the lotto.
This is a totally bullshit way to space out talent in a professional sports league.
Yeah, like I like the idea of lottos or lotteries for that, so you don't just tank and do that on purpose, like actual tanking, not just strategically strategically tanking, like we've kind of talked a little about. I don't think it should go top 16. Like it should be like, all right, the 5 worst get to fight it out, and for it. It's not one of these where you were a 500 team and you just happen to be in a really strong division, so you go from a 1.5% odds to getting the number 1 overall pick. You're like, wait, what? It does not do the parity thing justice, which is the entire point of the worst get the highest ranked or highest draft positions.
Rant over.
Yeah.
Proceeding to the NFL, Mike, what would you like to talk about?
At some point, I really hope that the Aaron Rodgers watch is over, and we don't have to deal with going, all right, did he sign? Did he not sign? What's going on? As far as I know, he hasn't signed, and he hasn't officially said that he was retiring. So the Aaron Rodgers watch continues. We've got David Carr. David Carr?
Derek
Which
Carr.
is the Carr brother? Derek. I'm like, that didn't sound right. So Derek Carr retired. Shoulder injury, right?
Yep. The choice apparently was have surgery and recover or retire, and he chose to retire. And
it does give them cap relief, from what I understand, if it's an injury retirement. So he's going to be like $30 million less of a liability this year, something along those lines. So that will help them out a little bit, because we've talked many times about how screwed their cap situation had been for the last several years.
Yeah, they've this will go a long way. Yeah, I just looked, and they are currently, I don't know if this is post Derek Carr or not. I guess I could click on it and figure it out. They're currently $22 million under the cap. This is with Derek Carr on the roster at a $20 million cap hit. So, but yeah, because he retired, I believe what they can basically do is spread out his remaining cap hit over 2 years. But then some money accelerates onto the cap hit. So I'm not exactly sure. But I know teams have, most recently, not most recently, but I know the Saints did this when Drew Brees retired, was that they designated him like a post June 1 retiree, which is what I'm sure they'll do with Carr. And then they allows them to spread out their cap hit.
Yeah.
Hey, Joseph. You missed my NBA rant.
Yeah.
It's classic. So what else is going on? Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah. He hasn't
reported,
been very happy, has he?
This is now the chic thing to do in the NFL. It's not a holdout. You're a hold in, where you're at practice, but you don't do anything. except talk and complain to the media. And he has said that he will not play on his current deal, and that the Bengals have basically, since the draft, cut off contact with his camp. So,
And
not
yet
really
they've also
sure
said
what's
that they're
going to
not going to
happen.
trade him.
Well, I mean, if I can't imagine that if you got like a legitimate offer, you wouldn't trade him. He is almost $19 million against the cap. And if he is a post June 1 trade, they can save $16 million. So I don't know why they wouldn't.
Do we go after him?
The problem with Trey Hendrickson is that he has said publicly he will not play on his current deal, which means he has to have a new deal in order to play. And he is currently making, what is he making? He's making something. He's making 18 million with no guaranteed money this year, almost 19. So you would have to extend him. Now, Shamar Stewart as well.
He's a rookie, isn't he?
I don't know what you mean as well. Trade for him? They're not. I mean, that's
A little early.
That can't be what you're referencing. But if you trade for him, the only way that I could see it working out would be if you give him a deal akin to what like Kirby Joseph had, where he has like super low cap hits, and then like half of the money is in a void year. But then you're just, I mean, they have less. They don't have a third round pick next year because they used one on Tesla and then 2 to trade up for him. And so they have 7 picks. The Lions do, but they only have 2 day 2 picks. So would you trade a second round pick for? Would the NFL trade a second round pick for Trey Henderson right now? I would think that if they would, then he would have been traded. So,
yeah, I mean, do you do a player in return, a second round pick, and Marcus Davenport?
I can't imagine
like that, right?
I just can't
There's
imagine
not a ton of value in that.
That Cincinnati would find any value in a player like Marcus Davenport. You know, like there's other Marcus Davenports out there. Like I think it's more likely that the Lions sign someone like Jadeveon Clowney, who is like a near perfect fit for what they want to do. However, you have cheaper Jadeveon Clowney and Marcus Davenport on the roster.
Yeah, but is he as good? Although Jadeveon's toward the back half of his career, though, right?
I believe that he is over 30. I guess I could check. Sign in. So we can check on that. But I would think Jadeveon Clowney is closer to doing what the Detroit Lions want done with that position across from Aiden Hutchinson than any player that was on. He is 32 years old. Than any player that was on the open market. Can't remember exactly who was on the open market.
There's not a lot.
Shamar Stewart is not holding out for a better contract. He cannot get a better contract because of the collective bargaining agreement. He's going to get what he gets for being picked where he was picked. The only thing he can do is to negotiate with the team on the timing of some of that money. But he cannot
how much
get
of it's
more
guaranteed,
money.
Right?
I don't even think it's the number. I don't even think it's the amount. I think it's all to do with the timing of when he gets paid. So the purpose, one of the main purposes of the CBA as we have it now, and it's been extended since they introduced it in 2011, was that they wanted to make sure that players did not hold their teams hostage before they had played a snap in the NFL. And the problem was players that were drafted highly would just demand ridiculous money. Like, what was it? Sam Bradford was $50 million guaranteed in like 2010, 2000, whatever it was.
Yeah, Stafford was like
2008.
67 or 63 or something guaranteed.
It's crazy. It was crazy. Like, one of the problems that Detroit had under the old CBA was that they drafted highly a lot. And so they had Matt, Calvin, and Ndamukong Suh all as either number 1 or number 2 picks in
Like,
consecutive
out of 5
drafts.
years or something.
And they accounted for something like 60% of the roster's money.
Yeah.
So like it was like you couldn't do anything because drafting the guys that were supposed to get you back to relevancy were continuing to drown your team. So the one thing that all the owners agreed on is like, we don't want that to happen to us. So
Right.
they put the language in there that basically says the amount of money that you are going to make on a guaranteed 4-year deal is locked into your draft position, and that increases proportionately to what the cap goes up every year. So it's always the same percentage from 1 to 257. So he's not going to get any more money because the league does not allow it. So he can only argue over the somewhat nebulous language about when he can get it. And so most teams avoid that by just being like, here you go.
I think Detroit fan man's probably right.
The problem with this situation is that the Cincinnati Bengals owners are the cheapest people in the NFL. They simply do not write checks if they don't have to. That's what Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Hendricks, like Joe Burrow, who doesn't go into the media much and shoot his mouth off, went public and basically was like, I want these guys back.
Yeah.
And that's
what you need to do.
That's as close as you can get to challenging your ownership to actually shell out some money. If you're going to own a professional sports team, pay.
Well, and the crazy thing is they've got half the cap space that we do. Like they're spending. It's are you spending it correctly?
You know that NFLPA survey that gets sent out every year, and they ask the players to rank their organizations on 11 different things. Cincinnati is almost always at the bottom. It's them and Arizona. That's like they just don't spend any money. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So let him sit out. I mean, it's not like he's going to get $3 million more a year. He's going to get what he's owed either now or slightly later. And I don't care. I don't care what it is. I think it is enough. It is not enough to warrant this action, in my opinion, for any of them.
Well, I think Detroit fan man's got it right. I think he just wants his contract finalized before he goes to camp, which I don't know why that would matter. Unless he's afraid that he's going to go into camp, get hurt, and then have them go, "Oh, we're not going to offer it to you at all anymore. You just had a career-ending injury or something." Is that
his
the
contract
concern?
should be pre-written?
Yeah,
like his contract. I mean, there's no way that it's like, well, we're going to decide A, B, and C. Like the Cincinnati Bengals and every other team, as soon as you know your draft pick, should be able to write up the contract of whatever pick you have, and the only thing that should be able to the language in these contracts that all of these rookies sign, first through 7th round, should be, I was taken, here's my name, and here's the pick I was taken at, which equates to this much money, and here's the line where I sign my name and date it.
Yeah, just get her done.
I don't know, if Shamar Stewart has said in public that he needs to have his contract finalized, then someone needs to tell him that he has to sign the fucking contract before it's finalized.
Sigh. I wonder if he represents himself, because I don't think his agent is doing him any favors.
He received a contract, but was complaining about it to the media. Same with the linebacker. Well, I have no doubt that the players that were drafted by the Bengals were like, oh, fuck. They can't have good relationships with agents.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels like they're shooting themselves in the foot with just the way that they do business. So I'm not going to talk about Shamar Stewart. I mean, they're not going to trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll play. I mean, but this whole thing is just reeks of if they just in the hundreds of thousands or whatever. Like if they wrote the check, this would all be done.
Per the Cincinnati Enquirer, Stewart and the Bengals tried to reach an agreement before rookie minicamp began. The two sides hit a snag in negotiations over roster bonus structure
Yeah.
and the language of the participation agreement.
Yeah. Vis-a-vis, nothing to argue. This should be virtually nothing to argue. You're talking about roster bonuses. You're not talking about guaranteed money. You're talking about like, oh, were you on the roster? Which he will be for 4 years. He'd have to shoot kids to not be on the roster. Like
it says the Bengals, the crux of the issue is Bengals offered Stewart came in at a lower percentage of roster bonuses than last year's number 17 overall pick. If the Bengals came in at the same percentage, Stewart would have participated with the rest of the first round picks, finalized their deals. The Bengals' initial offer came below what Dallas Turner, the 2024 17th overall pick by the Minnesota Vikings, received. First round picks are given a 4-year contract with a pre-salary and a signing bonus based on draft position. That's where the slot in which the player draft comes into play. So it's just like, here's the stamp from last year. Sign it.
Yeah, I completely blame Cincinnati for this. I don't blame Shamar Stewart for this. Just do it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Let me look at Dallas Turner's.
Turner received 89.6% of his salary converted to a roster bonus last year. The Bengals offer to Stewart didn't match that, and it's the main reason why he his only leverage for holdout until the team's officer at least meets or exceeds what Turner received from the Vikings. It's so dumb. Tampa Bay
I think they're both
wide receiver Emeka Egbuka 4-year deal with more than 90% of his salary converted to a roster bonus.
Which I just think means they can get it right now.
Yeah.
I'm having a hell of a time finding Dallas Turner.
I wish I had these problems in life, right?
There he is.
I want to get my guaranteed millions today, not tomorrow.
So, per over the cap, Dallas Turner got a roster bonus in his rookie year of nothing. Then in 2025, it'll be $500,000, then 1.1, then 1.4, all done. For a total of $3.1 million. Write him a fucking check today.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's just awful. This is just awful. Both of them are awful.
That's why Cincinnati is 24th out of 32 on the 2025 NFLPA report cards.
And I'll bet that in some of those criteria they score pretty highly. But I'll bet when it comes to like how they treat their players, that's where they're pretty low.
Great facilities, but they really treat us like crap.
All right. We got derailed.
All right, so what else do we want to talk about? We've got schedules coming out.
You take
tomorrow.
A look at the schedule. Yeah,
they should have released it today, so we had something to talk about. That's very rude.
I texted them. I texted the league office and was like, "Hey guys, what's up?" But that apparently didn't take. We can look at the schedule and we can look at home versus away, or we can wait till next week when the thing's actually out. I looked at when our injured players, Ali McNeil, Malcolm Rodriguez, Jesus, and Mekhi Wingo are due back. And so they all have ACLs. They were hurt.
They used to.
Yeah. Rodrigo and Wingo were hurt in the same game at the end of November, and then McNeil was hurt 2 weeks later. So in mid-December. So that is a 9 to 12 month injury. So if it's 9 months, you're looking at September, the start of the season. And if it's anything other than 9 months, you're if it's 10 months, you're on the NFI. Yep. And if it's 11 months, that's half the season. And if it's 12 months, which it might be for McNeil, you might well just be put on injured reserve for the whole season.
Well, I think they can do an injury designation designated to return
return.
before the playoffs, right?
Okay.
But essentially, he'll be on IR until they can open up his 21-day window.
They're not going to rush him back. I mean,
so let's talk about what we're not going to see from the Detroit Lions, and that is an international game, which is kind of a bummer. I do like the fact that our games are fairly like, hey, 1 o'clock on Sundays, right? We talked about consistency is good, but at the same time, it'd be cool to get to do an overseas thing. Although I guess it's we're not playing the Chargers, are we?
we do play the AFC West.
We do not play the Chargers, so we'll come back to this.
Oh, we only play the division winner.
So no, the Chargers are going to play to be announced in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Vikings get 2 overseas games, which I thought was really interesting.
In back-to-back weeks.
September 28th, October. Yeah. London and Dublin. They're just like, we're just going to stay here. Right? And they're just going to stay over in Europe.
Yeah.
And I'm just like looking at these games. I think Minnesota Pittsburgh would be an interesting game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
whose brand new quarterback can be slightly better. Ooh, in London.
Intriguing.
McCarthy or oh god, who did Dallas take?
Dallas.
No, I'm sorry, Pittsburgh. Who did Pittsburgh?
Don't they have Russell Wilson and
nope,
Justin Fields?
Russell is in New York, and Justin is in New York.
They both. Oh yeah. Who did they take?
I think they drafted somebody. I just can't.
They don't have Kenny Two Gloves anymore.
Nope, he's the presumed starter in Cleveland. Gross. Him and all of his
Pittsburgh Steelers roster. Let's see who we've got here.
Why do they not do this by team? God, ESPN is the worst.
And the Steelers website is not much better.
I got it taken care of.
Position.
They took Will Howard, Ohio State, in the something round 6.
Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson.
So I mean, Mason Rudolph's coming out of that one.
Yeah.
So your international game is J.J. McCarthy in his effective rookie season versus Mason Rudolph. Good job, planners.
Followed up by J.J. McCarthy
and Kenny Two Gloves.
And Kenny maybe. I mean, they've also got Gabriel, right? Didn't they just take him? And they got Shedeur Sanders. It's like I kind of feel bad for London and Dublin having to. I'm not sure how great those games are going to be.
Well, right.
Then you got Denver in London against the Jets. At least it's Aaron Rodgers' Jets.
You let this go, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, right now you're the one talking about him the most.
I know.
Keeping him relevant.
I know. I'm just saying, at least we don't have to watch him overseas.
So the Jags get their traditional London game.
Yep. I mean, look at these. Are there any of them that look like they're going to be great games? Like, I think LA should beat the crap out of Jacksonville. Denver will probably beat the crap out of the Jets.
I don't know about that. I bet that'll be close.
You think so?
Maybe. Yeah.
Just if the Jets defense comes to play, maybe.
I mean, I'm not thrilled by none of these games are Philadelphia. None of these games are Kansas City. None of these the Detroit Lions, the Buffalo Bills, the San Francisco 49ers, like any of these like traditionally good, recognizable brands. Now, maybe this is by design, is to inject other teams these audiences don't see nearly as much into their sports media. Could be a good idea. I know that teams sign up with the NFL to have their brand and their apparel pushed in certain overseas markets.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this slate of games could be like the ultimate end result of some like a process that, yeah, there it is.
So we could see LA, 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 LA. Like I guess I'm not really shocked that LA is one of the teams, right? Who else is on there quite a bit? We are. Brazil, Australia, Germany, Canada, Switzerland.
Yeah, remember, it's a show about the Lions. That's the background that we can all see right now.
Right, and that's when I'm like, all right, so if this was about like their global markets program and how do you get the ones that are in a lot of markets? I'm surprised that we weren't one of the games.
Yeah, so Germany and Brazil each have games now, and I know that in years past the Lions have had this program for the United Kingdom. So it is a bit surprising. However, I'm starting to get a little pissed. Like, and I understand how some Lions fans were Dan Campbell wasn't coach of the year, like it seems like they've been passed over because they were too good.
Yeah.
Almost. And I'm like, I don't really get it. And like maybe some of it is, well, Detroit Lions fans travel really well, and so ticket sales in the US will go up. I don't know how much that data gets tracked, but I would be surprised if somebody wasn't tracking it. Like how well each fan base's fans go to away games. Detroit has to be the number one.
Yeah.
On that list. So
we travel really well.
I wonder if part of that was just like we would see, not a significant reduction in ticket sales domestically, but maybe the international games just aren't as prestigious.
Well, the other thing I'm looking at is like LA, Jacksonville are going to be in London.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. Oh, I guess Jacksonville's in the UK.
That would be a shock to me if Jacksonville wasn't.
Well, right. I just I completely overlooked their logo there, and I'm like, well, maybe they're just picking ones that are not in regions to help get them into regions, but that's obviously not the case. So yeah. Anyway, so these are the overseas games, the out of country games. We are not on that list, which means we get to be local, and hopefully
a lot of primetime games in the States. So
yep, primetime there. These are our games. We're going to be playing Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota at home, obviously, and away because they're in our division. Dallas at home, the Giants, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay at home. And on the road, in addition to our divisional foes, we're going to have Washington. That'll be a nice rematch. I'm looking forward to that one. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia, Cincy, Baltimore, Kansas City, and LA. That is a murderer's row of road games. Holy crap.
So I'm going to push back a little bit. So first of all, when I've looked at this schedule, and it might change depending on the order of these games, which matters, I'm thinking 12-5 is going to be my guess. Here's the thing. I don't think they lose at home. None of those teams worry me at all. I think they sweep the division. So the games that I'm looking at as potential losses are Washington, Philly, Cincy, Baltimore, Kansas City, LA. So depending on if you are going to Cincinnati in the first 4 weeks, that's a win because they just never come out.
They start out slow. Yeah.
Right. How is Washington completely legit? Or was that like a bleep on the monitor for them? I'm guessing legit. However, if you get Washington early in the year, they have added Deebo Samuel. They have added Laramie Tunstall. They have added a bunch of rookies. Has that team gelled? So the team that the team that was gelled last year beat you, right?
Yeah.
So we'd have Aiden Hutchinson back for that game. There wouldn't be a shit ton of injuries. And probably, Jared Goff wouldn't have his worst game of the season.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that being
less
a win.
pressure that early.
Right. Detroit
Although
also.
Debo will probably be healthy though too, because he usually gets hurt around game 6 or 7. Yeah.
Detroit last year didn't start off amazingly. They went to overtime against the Rams at home. They won on the first drive. They lost at home the next week to the Bucs.
Yep.
In what was very clearly the worst game that they played, even with the injuries they had. So I don't think that Tampa Bay is on the same level as Detroit. I'm just not going to pick Tampa Bay to beat Detroit.
Right.
But it's an NFL team, so you have to play the game. So the teams that I think are going to be really hard for the Lions to beat are at Philly, at Baltimore, at Kansas City. Those are the games that I think are going to be the litmus test for who the Lions are this year. Those are all Super Bowl contenders. And we'll have to see on the other games, like, are you going to catch the Rams coming back from the international game? You know, like, what's their week look like? Is it going to be playing on a Sunday, then play on a Thursday, coming back from that international game? I don't know. We'll have to see. Like, which one of these games
do buys after that kind of stuff, right?
Huh?
Just hopefully the NHL or the NFL is smart enough to have bye weeks on or around, like, after those kinds of games to give these teams a little bit of a break and stuff. But we'll see how smart they are about that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, Detroit's had a week 5 bye now for like the last 50 years or whatever. So, I mean, that's the only thing. That's the only thing in this whole schedule that I care about is, can we please have a bye in the middle of the season? I don't need it to be at the end.
Right.
Can we just have a bye in the middle
week
of the
10,
season?
Right? A week 10 bye. It doesn't have to be week 13.
I don't want the first bye. Like, they gave that to Detroit so they could save the better buys for the better teams in the NFL, however long ago that shit was decided, and they just kept it for scheduling reasons. So, okay, the Titans can have the week 5 bye now. Sorry. Like, we're not the Titans anymore. You know, we're not the Browns. We're one of the better flag-bearing teams in the NFL, right? Like, we're helping push the brand forward. So please don't fuck us when it comes to a week 5 bye. So all I care about is I want to know who they're playing on Thanksgiving, because that's my favorite game. And I want to know when the bye is. So, well, I don't know why they would, Brian. I mean, both of those teams are playing on a short week.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, because we end up with 3 games in like 12 days or something.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Baltimore had the same thing happen to them.
Yeah, and that happens to us almost every year, unfortunately. Right.
So, of the teams they're playing at home, I think the best team that the Lions are playing at home are the Packers. We'll have to see how stuff plays out. Like, injuries are going to happen. Players will impress when you didn't expect them to. Players will be worse than you expect them to be for some reason. The games that I'm really concerned about are either the teams with the exceptional quarterbacks, or they just or Philadelphia, which is built basically like Detroit and Philadelphia are built in such a similar way as far as I am concerned. So, but I am not concerned about the division at all. I think the Lions will sweep the division, and then they just have to win 6 more games to basically lock it up, in my opinion. So
this is the 2025 strength of schedule. We have the second, tied with Chicago, tied for the second hardest schedule in the NFL.
I have no idea how the Giants can. Well, the problem with Philadelphia being 4th is that the Giants are in their division.
Yeah.
So they play one of the worst teams in the NFL twice. The NFC North can't say that.
Right. Oh, we do get Chicago.
Yeah, but Chicago, what was Chicago last year?
Chicago was 5-12.
Yeah, okay.
They were definitely, That's better, but not a ton better than 3 and 14.
Didn't
Which
they
we
didn't
got
they
a
start
couple
out
3 and 14
4-2
dudes.
though? I mean, like,
Yeah.
and went on just like an epic slide. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
just
mean,
not
looking at some of these,
worried.
like Washington has got a tough. So the good news is the other good teams also have very, very tough schedules, and they don't have cakewalks that might get them an easy road to the number one overall, right? Washington is eighth. Philadelphia's got the fourth. Um, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, we're all in the top eight when it comes to strength of schedule. So those are some of the big ones.
Yeah,
Um,
we're cannibalizing each other.
well, that's also it as well. Tampa Bay, LA at 17, 18. Where's
So
Dallas?
we're gonna get the actual schedule tomorrow. We'll talk about that
Oh,
next week.
Dallas is 13.
But
Yeah.
and then we usually make our predictions, our side by side predictions.
What did you want to talk about Tesla or Hassanein at all? I thought this was pretty cool. We get um, an extra roster spot because he falls under their international pathways program, so he doesn't count as a roster spot. I think that's only during the 90-man era. Like, I don't think we get a 54th
Oh,
player. But I think that's kind of cool that we get an extra dude, and they're promoting the international player, an ability for international players to come through. So I thought that was pretty cool.
so here's my take on this. The IPP program has been in place now for a while. Like I think it's like close to a decade. But no one pays any attention to these guys,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because you have success stories. The number one success story out of the IPP is Jordan Mailata from Philadelphia, who is arguably the best tackle in the NFL. Got him as a 7th rounder, paid him nothing for a long time. Great. That's excellent. Here's my take. If you want to do something with a 7th round pick, take one of these kids. You get the extra roster spot for a while. That's your benefit. Take them late. I think it's just an underdeveloped market. Like even if it's like so, like usually like Ireland and the UK hold like a kickers convention for either university level or like semi-professional soccer players who want an opportunity to maybe change sports and go into the NFL. There's
Oh,
not
cool.
32 legitimate kickers in the NFL. So
We know that we struggled
right,
with it for a couple of years.
we sure did. So take one of these guys, get the roster spot. The upside is huge, right? They took Hassanein. I like the kid. I think that he'll work himself. He'll work his floor as a player as high as it can go. I just don't know how high the ceiling is. That's the only problem. So
Yeah.
like if he's the defensive end version of Jordan Mailata, I'll praise the pick until cows come home.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, Sione Vaki had better be something other than just a 4th round special teamer, and like Giovanni Manu had better be better than like a 3rd or 4th round or whatever he was. Developmental tackle. Like this is where you take those chances, in my opinion.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I watched some rookie mini camp tape. Tesla is big. He doesn't drop the ball. He's faster than people think. He was playing against rookie tryout players. So I don't think that like he's not going up against DJ Reed, So I'm interested to see what he looks like. I think there's a real chance that he plays his way onto the field sooner than I expect him to be, like possibly this year. Tim
Tesla.
Patrick, yeah, Tesla. like Tim Patrick has an injury history. I don't wish him to have an injury, but what if Tesla catches on? He's the better athlete. I think that he can probably do more than Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick is very clearly like committed to his role on the Lions and fulfills that role better than anybody else on the roster that we currently have. So, but Tesla has the ability, I think, to surpass him at some point. When and if that happens this year, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
the Buffalo Bills have already stated that they were planning to draft Tesla 2 picks later.
Sure.
So that's why we had to get up there. The Rams said that they offered a second round pick to try to move up for him specifically. And the Saints were ready to take them with their next pick as well. So this isn't just some guy that we were reaching for. Like, this was somebody that was on a bunch of teams' radar.
So here's my only issue with that, right? And this is the same thing as Jahmyr Gibbs 2 years ago. Okay. He's higher. Other teams have him pegged or ranked similarly to what you do. That in and of itself is not a reason to draft any player. Oh, other teams like him. Well, now we have to do it. That's not a rationale for pulling the gun, in my opinion.
Right. No, I think it was high on our list as well, right? Obviously.
Oh, completely agree. Because they traded 3 picks for him. So obviously, I completely agree with your assertion that he was high on their board and that they felt they had to do that. And maybe they did. I don't know. So what that kind of narrative suggests to me is an alternate reality where it's clear that he would have been gone if this other thing that happened in real life did not happen.
Didn't happen. Right.
So and that is just not how shit works. I don't know. I mean, if the Jets 2 years ago, the Lions trade down, they take Jahmyr Gibbs, fine. Whatever, he's a great player. 2 years later, the Jets come out and they say, oh yeah, we would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs if he'd gotten to our pick, wherever it was that year. I don't remember. We would have taken him if he'd fallen to our pick. Okay. Do we know that the Jets would have done that? I mean, does Brad Holmes know who the Jets would have taken if that player had fallen to the Jets in the 2022 draft? 2023 draft. I don't know.
Right.
Does he know that at 70, New Orleans is drafting Isaac Tesla? If he doesn't trade up in front of them, how would he know? Maybe he has a conversation with Mickey Loomis, but we know
right
that the GMs of the Eagles and Chiefs had a conversation where they wouldn't tell each other which player they were drafting, and the Eagles traded up 1 pick.
Yeah.
So how do you know?
Yeah. You just go for you don't know, and you go for your guy just in case, right?
And that's the more likely, what sounds like the more real scenario to me.
Yeah, they were afraid what they think is going to happen would happen, right? And
correct.
And I'm not even sure they were necessarily afraid that LA was going to move up or whatever, or or the Buffalo that would take them. Like that's probably something that would make sense, right? Buffalo needs a guy like him on their team. So it makes sense that, hey, this guy's still here. Good chance that they're going to take him, but I like the fact that basically afterwards, all 3 of those teams are like, we were all over that guy if he got to us. Like, we were trying to trade up for him, and a couple others like, hey, he was our next pick if he was there. So I think it helps for those that are like, oh my gosh, he gave up too much. We could have just gotten him. He was projected to be a 4th rounder, and we took him in the 3rd, or whatever that they're saying. I mean, sure, but at the same time, I don't think that's what the reality was. He would not have lasted past, to our next pick. And sure. I think it's all right. Well, is the draft assets that we gave up worth it? And we won't know for about 3 years. right?
So in order for Tesla to quote unquote be worth the 3 players that they hypothetically gave up, right? I mean, they actually gave away those picks. So they gave away 3 players. Who those players would have been is debatable, right?
Alternate reality, right?
Ooh, Brian coming in hot. He's got a bet for us. He predicts Tesla will be a second contract starter worth the trade. Okay, so Brian, thank you for saying that. Here's what I will say. That's who he needs to be in order to be worth it. Like, you can't be, can you be less? Can you be less than what Brian has just said here? A second contract starter. So remember, Brian Burns. Nope. Derek Barnes nailed it.
You're so close, though.
Fuck.
That's a new one for you, Drew.
I am so tired. Who's Brian Burns? He's a defensive end for the Giants. That's who he was.
Yeah. Former defenseman for the San Jose Sharks. But
he's relevant to the thing I'm trying to say, right? My word.
But which Decker do we have now? Just so I want to make sure, see where your brain's at. All right.
I had to think about it. But Derek Barnes is a second contract starter, right? He got $8 million a year. Is he worth trading up 3 picks to get? Now I know they got him in the 4th, so or whatever, But like, there's also Kirby Joseph, right? Kirby Joseph's probably a better comparison here. The Lions stuck and picked Kirby Joseph in the 3rd round. They traded up for Tesla in the 3rd round, so not exactly the same. But Kirby Joseph is being paid as the highest paid safety in the NFL by AAV.
Yep.
Okay. So Tesla, I'm not saying he needs to be the best wide receiver in the NFL, but you need to be a productive starting member of this offense on a second contract to warrant the faith that someone like Brad Holmes must have in a player like Isaac Tesla.
Yeah.
In order to, I don't want to say justify, but it's real close, this kind of move up.
Yeah. He's probably, him and Tate Ratledge are probably the 2 guys I'm most interested in seeing in preseason. I'm excited to see Tyleik Williams and Hastanainen because night on the field for you, coach. Like I'm all in, right? But
I hope you watch the preseason games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think in the preseason, those are the guys that I'm most excited to see, and probably Tesla more than any of them, just because I think that we need a little bit of depth at wide receiver, and I think that's where it'll be a big help for us.
Yeah, and like a month or 2 ago, we went through like the history of like Detroit's draft picks under Brad Holmes, and was like hit, pillar, miss, or like hit but not a pillar, like someone like Derek Barnes,
right.
And like basically Brad hits on 2 out of every 3 picks that he takes, regardless of where they,
which is crazy high.
It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's like it's him and Howie Roseman as the best drafters in the NFL, like over the last 3-4 years. People in Philadelphia will say Roseman, we'll say Holmes, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, I think that if Brad behaved more like Roseman and how they play the draft, we would have more guys on the roster right now. Like, unless the only thing I keep coming back to is their board as to like draftable players has to be unbelievably small to warrant these kinds of consistent trade ups in order to acquire their guys. Because if you had a board that was like tiered in some way, where it's like our guys, grit all the way, dying on the field, running through walls, coach's dream, whatever, tier 1. Ratledge, Hassanine, Tesla, whoever. Tier 2, right? Super athletic, effective, productive starter at the collegiate level. So like Tyleek Williams, right? Okay. Tier 3, like special teamer with potential backup or near starter level possibility, right?
Right.
That kind of thing. Like if you had tiers like that, you wouldn't be able to just like sit and stick for a round or two. Like Brad has traded up something like 7 or 8 times in the last 2 drafts. So, am I thinking of? Now I think of it. It's the last 3 because 23, 24, and 25. He traded up for Terry and Arnold a little bit. They sat at 60 for Ennis Rakestraw, and I'm fuzzy on the rest of the draft right now. The roster is tough to crack.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that. Like if we only have so many roster spots, what good does having 7 draft picks do for you if some of them there's just not enough spots? So do you take some of those assets and turn them into more likely a sure thing picks, right? And I think that's one of the things that he might have been trying to do here. Hopefully he's right? But I think that's what he was trying to do.
Well, I mean, they also signed 10 UDFAs, because the roster balloons up to 90 or whatever. But like,
yeah,
I mean, it's not a terrible problem. So tell me what the difference is between. There it is. There you go, Mike. You got a champion. Yeah. Tell me what the difference is between like using a 3rd round pick to trade up and not having that pick available to select a player, and then having that pick available and that guy not working out on the roster. What is the difference? In my opinion, the difference is if the guy that you traded up for doesn't work out, you failed twice because you don't have another shot at adding a player to the roster. And like the saving grace of this and like my trepidation and fear about the draft is that like if Brad Holmes has stumbled onto a formula that is foolproof, then he's the greatest GM in the history of sports. And I just have such a hard time being like, the Detroit Lions have found the greatest GM in the history of sports. Or the greatest drafter, at least.
Right.
So, I mean, like, the eventual end game of this kind of strategy, whatever you want to call it, like the trade-up strategy or F them picks version 2.0 or whatever, like, whatever you want to take, is that like if the Lions just draft on day 1 and day 2 and they pick 3 guys, everyone's fine with it. I mean, like,
as long as they hit,
right, and that's it. So like you can't miss, and like that, there's so little room on NFL rosters to the roster dictates reaching for better talent. So that's a great point. So let's examine that for a minute. Okay, so the roster dictates that you have to reach for talent. They have reached for, so they didn't trade up for Tyleek Williams, right? But they took a guy who projects to be their starting nose tackle a year from now, right? They took a guy in the 3rd round they traded up for to be their projected X wide receiver a year from now. And then who was the 2nd round pick? Ratledge. So, like,
he projects to be a starter.
He's going to be a starter day 1, right? Those are the spots that you trade. The roster dictated you had to trade up for, or take it all. I mean, like, I would, when I look at the roster, I'm not in charge of it, but like when I look at it. Yeah, exactly. Like he just has like an abnormally low collection of people he thinks are worth taking, right? Like they fit his board or that's inside his box. Like I think that's correct. Is that they just have unbelievably selective players that they want. But like So the gap between someone who fits the roster that Brad wants to build are worth trading up for, and then everyone else is not worth taking, it seems like. Where am I wrong there? So, like, you trade up for Ratledge to Slaw, Miles Frazier. Like, Tyleek Williams is a good player. No one's talking about that. But, like, I think that there are still holes on this roster. You know, like, Edge was the one that I think of first. And, like, not just that. So, like look at the positions they address. Like, so Ratledge is going to walk into right guard, right? Not a problem. Tyleek Williams is going to share snaps and then projects to be a starter when DJ Reader's off the roster. Slaw is going to split snaps to some percentage.
Right.
And then projects to be the starter when Tim Patrick is off the roster. Okay, a lot of good things about that. Like, you're going to get cheaper. You're going to get younger. You're going to get more athletic.
For the future.
Right. I love all that. Can't remember where I was going.
It does give us a larger window when we're planning for the future, as opposed everybody's in a win now mode, right? That's what sports is a win now mode. But our roster, you don't have to go all in. We could have been dang near undefeated, you know? So our roster is really damn good. We don't have to go all in. We don't have to F them picks to fill major holes, and this is our only window. We've got a wider window, in part because of these decisions, which I think are great because it gives us that the duration, that the window is wider now, which is really nice.
Right. And that's there's truth in all of this, right? I think.
Yeah.
So I liked it a couple years ago. They trade for Carlton Davis. They draft 2 corners, and they signed Amik Robertson. And then Carlton leaves in free agency. They signed DJ Reed. They went super hard at that position. And now you have youth, you have depth, and you have talent at that position. And like, not only that, but this year they went out and they signed Avonte Maddox to be a backup to Amik Robertson. I think that he's better than Kindle Vilder, the famous Kindle Vilder, Mike Coates' fame, that kind of thing. So I think that whole position group is better off. But like when we talked to Eric Eager, from the former VP of Research and Development at PFF way back in the day, like, he's like, and I agree with this, that like, the closer, as a defensive player, the closer you are to the ball, the less variables there are that you have to worry about. Okay, so like, my problem with the Lions is they seem to be building the defense from back to front. You got your safeties. Now you got all your corners. Like, you have a solid starter in Alex Anzalone, the up-and-coming Jack Campbell at middle linebacker, and then Derek Barr's there. He's there a little bit.
Rodrigo.
And Rodrigo. I mean, yeah. Yeah, and Rodrigo's there, So, and then on the defensive line, you drafted Hutch at 2 overall. McNeil was a great 3rd-round pick. You've added Tyleek Williams. And then there's the 6th-round picks and the consistently hurt and the guys that got to play last year because everybody was the walking wounded at the other edge position. And it's like, to me, I know he doesn't draft for need. I know that because there's no quality starter at that spot and there's no depth behind it.
Yeah.
So it's going to continue to be the thing that I say, this is the obvious hole on the roster. Like, if there is a hole, it's at edge. Like next year, and here's the other thing, like in a year, Anzalone's contract's up. Like, what do you're not just going to find too many dudes that are going to come in off the street and do what he does at will linebacker for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
So
you might just extend them for a year or 2 years, 1 guaranteed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, is my guess as to what they will do, right?
So
Michael Lutzke is just
off.
yeah.
Oh. What's up?
Michael Lutchies, who just joined us here in chat, is big on they needed to add people to the interior defense, like the interior defensive line.
Right.
And like last week, you and I, we've talked a little bit about like how deep that we think they are there. Like one argument, like you did not enjoy Kendall Vilder on this team, right? And he's a cornerback. But there's terrible. A reason the Lions signed him to the roster each of the last 2 years, right?
So we had to have a body.
Right. And so he knows what they're trying to do, right? And they trusted him more than just some guy off the street, right? So hang on. So what would Pascal Davenport or others need to do for you to feel your take on left end is wrong? They would need to be the long-term starters at those positions. So Josh Pascal, who I think is a fine player, I don't think that he's a second round, like what you would hope to get out of a second rounder. But I think that he's probably going to get like the Derek Barnes contract. Like, we'd like to have you on the roster for the next 3 years, but we're not going to give you much money. He's a guy. And then Davenport, has he played 500 snaps in any season in the last 5 years? I mean,
they just need to play productive starter level.
Right. And they're
pretty
just
much all season.
None of those guys are. Like, Pascal's on the roster because he's versatile and he can play in that spot. But like, if he had shown that he was the future of that spot, they would play him there consistently, and they don't. And so like, and Davenport they signed, he got hurt. Okay, some people call that hit dirty. That hurt him. I don't know if it is or not. But I know that he got hurt from it, and he was out for the rest of the year, and he wasn't on the field. So some people say, re-sign Zadarius Smith and play him on the other side. And to those people, I say, that's not what they want over there. Otherwise, they would have more guys like Hutch on the roster, and they haven't re-signed.
And they would have already signed him to put over there.
Yeah, and they cut him. I mean, he was under contract for this year, and they cut him, and they have the third most cap space in the NFL.
They didn't need to do it for cap purposes.
Right. So this is right. That is, see, you say things that I can't get out of my mouth so well. Joseph, I think, is right here. If Davenport plays all season, that's a game changer. I agree.
That's what he needs to do to make, I think, Drew to quote unquote be wrong.
Right. I asked because I'm assuming you are not demanding Brad go find a 1B to go with Hutch instead of William. What I want to see Brad Holmes do is I want him to go out and find a guy like Marcus Davenport, who was on a rookie deal, who does what Marcus Davenport does, which is to set the edge and to push the pocket towards Aiden Hutchinson. That is what I want. You have Aiden Hutchinson. Mike, is Aiden Hutchinson the defensive player of the year if he plays 17 games last season?
Walking away.
I want the rest of the defensive line to maximize Aiden Hutchinson. That is what I want. Yeah. And Ali McNeil is an excellent piece of that. Unfortunately, he is injured. I think Talik Williams will be an excellent piece of that next season. Now, give me the dude who is supposed to make there be less space in the pocket so that Aiden Hutchinson and his like chicken wing arms can get there. That's the one problem with Aiden Hutchinson is he doesn't have long arms. And how many times have you seen him reach out and like touch the uniform of the opposing quarterback? So all we need is a guy that like this is my ideal
a hand's width closer, right? That's all we need.
The ideal person to put across from Aiden Hutchinson in that spot is Jared Verse. Someone who bull rushes the pocket back into the quarterback's lap. Those two guys together would be unbelievable.
Nigh unstoppable.
Correct. So, like, I want a player. Obviously, they're not going to do it as well as Jared Verse. Can we find a dude who does something similar to that, who's on a rookie contract, who's the projected starter going into the season where we don't have a camp battle for the guy across Aiden Hutchinson, and then build some depth into it. You know, like it's not insane. You know, but like
Healthy Davenport is him. We'll see. Like, let's see if he can stay healthy.
I'm sure that I will love Tate Ratledge, but I would draft a defensive end to play across from Aiden Hutchinson 10 out of 10 times before I draft Tate Ratledge.
Yeah.
And I'm going to love him. I know I will. It's hard to be bad when you're in between Frank Ragnow and Penny Sewell. It's just going to be hard to be bad.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Before we sign off, I wanted to talk about one other thing. We've talked in the past about consistency in when we play our games, 1 o'clock. Just having that consistent pattern is always a good thing. What are your thoughts around the fact that we have the 4th least amount of miles traveled? Because to me, that's wear and tear, and that's all that kind of stuff. Do you think of miles traveled in a similar way that we think of start times and that kind of stuff?
100% I do. So I don't think that you can look at this list and say, oh, all the bad teams travel more miles.
Right. Well, these are the ones playing overseas, if you look at them.
Oh, this is for how many miles they'll travel this season?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think the Lions
26 miles travel
are in a great spot geographically to not travel much, right?
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, like, I am a little surprised that Buffalo is so low, considering they have to go to Miami.
It's 2,000 miles. It's less than 2,000.
Yeah, so it's 20% of the total. The rest of the 8 or 9
but
games.
Obviously, they're not on that international list either. So everybody that's on the international list, you're looking at over 20,000 miles, double of what Detroit is doing.
I would have been happy.
I think Cincinnati's walking to some games. Jesus.
Sure. No, I mean, like, that's crazy. So, like, they play Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cleveland. So, I mean, like,
those are all things you take a bus to.
Right. I mean, they don't have to fly. So, I think that this matters. Like, I know when I travel, I'm not a professional athlete by any stretch of the imagination or visually. Yeah. So, like, but I still think that makes people tired, you know, and it's a break in your routine, which I think matters for human beings. And I think this is a big deal. So, like, if I was in charge of the Detroit Lions schedule and I could force the league office to do what I wanted, the Lions would play at Sunday at 1 o'clock every week.
Yep.
And they would never have a game that was like in 4 days from another game except Thanksgiving. And I would do no international games. And, like, I know that I will be in the minority here, but I am now 42. I do not want to watch a football game that starts at 8 o'clock at night. I just don't care. If it's like, I'm going to watch the Lions live at 8 o'clock on a Monday or go to sleep, I'm going to sleep.
And even then, doesn't Monday Night Football start at 9?
It's ridiculous.
Which is even worse.
It's ridiculous. So, I mean, I can't do it. So I don't want to see my team play in those slots. Now, if you listen to Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast, he wants it.
Yeah.
It's fun for them. But they are effectively kids. They're in their early to mid 20s. So let them have fun. If that's what they want to do, I'm not in charge of it. So I'm trying not to be too rankled by it. But, like, I like that. And I want to see games on Sunday at 1.
Yeah. I don't mind some of the. I don't mind the primetime premium games. I think that's cool that we're getting highlighted, and I would prefer to be able to watch my games at 1 as well. But that's not what primetime means. So I don't mind an 8 o'clock start on a Sunday night. I don't like the Monday nights because they start a little bit later. That hour does make a difference to me. 9 to 11:30 is different than 8 to 10:30. But I'll be curious to see where we end up. Schedule will come out tomorrow, and so next week we'll do a deep dive. We'll do our picks, side by side picks of who we think we're gonna win, and I'll be really curious to see what order they come in. Are we starting off, bang 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 on the road? Are we gonna start off at home? Are we gonna be playing against some of these really top teams at the beginning? Or are we going to get some momentum, then play some of the top teams in the middle? I'm excited about tomorrow.
Tyrion Arnold tweeted 45 minutes ago, y'all better come back to this tweet tomorrow. You're crazy who our first game is, or something to that effect. So, like, we know
who our first game is, huh?
We know who they play. Like, who would be a big deal that they play right off the bat? Not Chicago.
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
They did that at Kansas City. Oh, they did that last year, though.
They did that last year. It's not Philadelphia because they play Dallas.
Oh, it's gonna be. I bet it's Washington. In Washington, rematch.
Okay. I would be up for it. Or so I guess the Bears would be the Ben Johnson rematch.
Ooh, yep. I like that.
We don't play the Jets, right?
We do not play the Jets.
Glenn matchup. Well, now I'm interested. Apparently, he knows. So,
yeah. So these are the games that we've got. Yeah, you got Ben Johnson in Chicago, so one of those games potentially. Rematch with Washington, Super Bowl winners. Obviously, the Stafford rivalry thing is there. Kansas City, Super Bowl finalists. I can't imagine it's going to be like, oh, Cleveland. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? You got to come back tomorrow and like, it's amazing. So I'm thinking it's got to be one of these others.
I don't know. I'm sure it'll be interesting no matter what. It's the NFL. They can't do anything that's uninteresting.
Yeah. So. 365 days a year for what somehow they're able to do it. But
constant sports. So.
We will see you all next week, where we'll see what all this is about.
Yeah, it'll be our big it'll be our big schedule show. So bring your pencils and your predictions.
Right on.
Right,
awesome.
Thanks,
Good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.